Alright guys, today I'm going to be walking you through my 4-piece Alpha Bridge hybrid SMG build. The basic composition is 3 pieces of electronics and 2 pieces of firearms with an MP7 for burst damage, has the refresh mask and the vigorous chest piece. Now a lot of people are going to say that my meter stats are bad, and I would urge everyone out there to listen through the entire video before saying something like that in the comments. The meter stats are not indicative of how strong this build is. It actually does have a decent amount of survivability, it actually does have a great amount of damage, and it's a very versatile, very flexible build that can be put together fairly easily and has really great results. As you can see with normalization kicking in as well, the stats are much higher, but again, I would urge everyone to listen through and listen to all the explanations of the different mechanics before posting a comment down below saying that your meter stats are better than what is displayed here. I understand that the meters are low, but that is not something to base a build around. This build actually performs extremely well in Last Stand, in PvP in particular, and has great survivability, great utility, and can do a lot of different things really well. For my chest piece, I've opted to run the Vigorous talent, which is the #1 way to increase survivability, especially in group-based PvP scenarios, like Last Stand. The Vigorous talent allows you to receive an overheal from all incoming healing, which means anytime an ally drops any form of healing, you will operate within that overheal. You can almost 100% of the time maintain an overheal before entering a fight, which is really powerful with the build, and not a lot of agents are operating within those overheals now, so oftentimes you'll go up against an agent that does not have one, and that will increase your base health pool enough to kill them. Again, like I said, the toughness meter stat is not indicative of how strong or how tanky the build actually is. You want the highest possible main stat roll you can get. Aim for over 1250 if possible on all different gear pieces. And for major attributes, you want health and skill haste. Skill haste is actually integral to the build as well. You want to be popping your heal and your pulse as often as possible for a variety of reasons. I'll talk about that more later on. And health is actually equivalent to about 1,000 main stat of stamina in this major attribute roll, so it's too much to pass up there. For minor attributes, you want ammo capacity, though that isn't essential at all. For my second high-end piece, I've opted to run the Refreshed Mask. Now, the reason for this is another really good tanking mechanic and tanking tool. It's a talent that meshes very well with survivability and high skill power, and all healing being improved by 30% when in the last health segment means that you can go from almost being dead in the last health segment to over full health with a section of overheal just from popping one booster shot during a PvP fight. So Refreshed is actually, deflationary on the meter. It may look like I'm very easy to kill, but that isn't the case. Vigorous and Refreshed and the low cooldowns all mesh together to create an actually fairly tanky character that may have low toughness but has a lot of survivability. For major attributes, you want critical hit chance, and for minor attributes, you want damage to elites if you are going to be using this in PvE. Now, if you're not using this in PvE, you can offer something like burn resistance. That's really good in PvP, but it does translate very well to PvE. You have a lot of utility and a lot of healing potential for teammates. You have high damage output, and you have very good survivability. This is a highly recommended PvE build and PvP build. If you want to take this into a legendary mission, if you want to take this into, the dark zone and farm, etc., it will perform. It's actually very efficient at killing NPCs, not only at killing other enemy players. Knee pads are fairly straightforward on this build. It's my second piece of firearms, and I've opted to run health as a major attribute. This is very important. Again, just like the chest piece, it's worth about 1,000 main stat of stamina. For minor attributes, I have shock resistance, which is phenomenal, but I would prefer to have burn resistance instead of disorient resistance. Those are actually very helpful in PvP in particular due to the very high frequency and amount of seeker mines, airburst seeker mines, and flame turrets, as well as shock turrets. So you want to be avoiding those status effects if possible. That's the only thing I change about these knee pads. The backpack is another simple one. I have opted to run health again as a major attribute. That is highly recommended. I've got electronics as my main stat roll. This is one of my 3 electronics pieces. And then for a minor attribute, I have 53% ammo capacity. That can easily be swapped out for something like a resistance, but it's not crucial to the build. Next up is the gloves. Now, these are not a great pair of gloves because they have a very low native armor roll. However, they do get the job done, and with normalization, it doesn't matter as much. This is another piece of electronics gear. I would prefer to have over 1250, but 1210 gets the job done. Aim for over 1200 bare minimum if you possibly can on all different gear pieces for major stat rolls. And then for major attributes, you have critical hit chance, skill haste, and critical hit opt. Now, some people would say that you should opt for SMG damage, and if you are trying to have higher damage output, then you can absolutely do that. But 8% skill haste meshes very well with the survivability and gives me more uptime on my booster shot and more uptime on my pulse, which simultaneously trigger competent. So that's something that I opt for and I think is very valuable here. So skill haste on the gloves is highly recommended. Last up for gear is the holster, and this is actually a little bit versatile. You can change this out, the skill haste, for health if you want to. That would increase your per fight damage, but I think the skill haste stacking up as high as it is meshes very well with the frequency of being able to pop your skills, and thus meaning that you have higher health and a better damage output and better survivability over the course of the entire match rather than just on a per fight basis. So holster, aim for as high a possible main stat roll in all 3 categories as you can get, and then you can have skill haste or health, it's user's preference. For my weapon, I've opted to run an MP7. Before anyone asks though, you can absolutely switch this out. You can run an MP5, you can run an AUG. If you're choosing to run an SMG, any of those are going to be viable. You do not have to run an MP7, but I think the RPM and the burst damage potential is really, really good with the MP7. Plus, I have the right talents on the gun. This build also cross-performs with different weapon archetypes, so you don't have to be running SMGs if you don't want to. Though all the different stat points and the way I've built it does work very, very well with SMGs, so it is recommended. This MP7 for talents has unforgiving, responsive, and competent. That is what I consider to be the ultimate god roll for a DPS build, and the beauty of Alpha Bridge is that I don't have to have the main stats required to unlock these. So I don't actually need to have unforgiving in the third slot like a lot of other standard DPS builds need to now to unlock it, which means I can have it for free, and also increases the frequency of getting guns that are usable in the build. So this is more versatile, it's easier to acquire. If you have a gun out there that has unforgiving and it's not in the third slot, this build will allow you to activate it for free. Unforgiving is very strong, responsive, again, all 3% weapon damage bonuses, so I would highly advise having these three, though the order of the talents does not matter this time. For my fourth talent, I've opted to run Deadly since I am almost exactly meeting crit chance cap with my pulse. I've opted to run Deadly because I'll get it about 60% of the time. It's a very, very good talent with SMGs in particular, and since I already have the three, my top tier 3 talents on my MP7, I was flexible. I could choose any talent that I wanted for my fourth one from my secondary gun. But that's user's preference. You can change that around if you want to. For my gear mods, I'm opting to run Electronics with Skill Haste. This boosts the amount of healing that I can do and also the frequency with which I can output it. It also means that I have a 100% uptime, like I said previously, on the competent talent. I can pop my pulse extremely frequently, and this build really centers around using your skills all the time. Maintaining a high overheal, maintaining pulse on targets to have maxed out crit hit chance, and keeping those active, simultaneously keeping competent active, and it works very, very well. So you can opt for something like Electronics mods with health if you want to. That would actually boost your toughness further. Again, in normalization, it's not going to matter as much right now. Maybe it would matter a little bit if I went to the Dark Zone or something like that. So you can definitely switch those out. But I think that 3% skill haste on 5 mods in particular, coming out to 15% total, is a really good way to go. For all of my performance mods, I'm opting for prototype performance mods with 6% first aid self-heal. This is very important. This is actually going to compound on top of the fact that you have the refreshed mask to increase your healing output dramatically higher than what your skill power would suggest. Your booster shot actually becomes an extremely powerful healing tool that you can pop very frequently, and that's where the survivability comes from, and that's where the comfort comes from. A lot of builds right now don't have a very good healing rotation. When you pop your heal, it doesn't do very much, and you're only using it as an offensive or defensive tool to mitigate damage or boost damage before fights. This build actually allows you to go from almost 0 health to more than full health into an overheal. And that's very, very strong in the current metagame. So I would recommend running 4 first aid self-heal mods for performance mods. For weapon mods, you always want to be running an extended magazine, but then outside of that, since I'm going to be maintaining 100% uptime on pulse and then also having almost exactly crit chance capped from that pulse, all the different stat points can be prioritized differently. So I can actually go for critical hit damage on all of my different weapon mods instead of prioritizing critical hit chance. So on your underbarrel, you want crit hit damage as a major, on your vent break, same story, and then on your scope, again, crit hit damage. If you can get critical hit chance as a minor on all these different pieces, that's great as well, but you're not going to need it, it's not going to be essential. For skills, you're going to be running Booster Shot on your self-heal, and then you want to run the Recon Pack for a shorter cooldown on your pulse. There's a lot of really interesting things to note about these skills. This is the bread and butter of the build. Number 1, you have 131,000 self-heal. That can be much higher. When normalization kicks in, that will actually be higher. A very low cooldown, and that's further increased by 30% if you're in the last health segment, allowing you to go from almost 0 health all the way back to more than full health and some of your overheal. A very valuable healing tool. You can pop this at the beginning of fights as well as then during the fight. Any cooldown reduction at all is going to make that even more frequent, but you're going to pop this before the fight starts, and then during the fight when you get to low health, you'll probably have it off cooldown, and you can pop it again. You have so much healing that you can outpace your enemies in a lot of 1v1 encounters, even 2v1 encounters, and you're also going to get the bonuses 2 times during that fight. The increased damage and the damage mitigation from Booster Shot, you're going to get twice, at the front end and then right during the middle meat of the fight, so it's a very valuable healing tool. Outside of that, you're going to run the Recon Pack for your pulse for lower cooldowns. The critical hit chance is the important thing here. You're going to be aiming for 24% if you can possibly get it. As you can see, 22.9, that's actually higher in Last Stand when I get the normalization because a lot of my electronics rolls go up. But 22.9 meshed with the 36% is very close to the 60% crit chance cap. So I recommend running Recon Pack because of the lower cooldown, and then it also has higher crit hit chance, and that meshed with the native crit on your SMG means that you're going to be aiming for 60% and you have very high base damage output on targets that remain pulsed. For talents, you're going to be running Triage, On the Move, Strike Back, and critical save. Now, if you're not in a group, I would recommend switching out triage for something like one is none. But otherwise, that's a really good spread of talents. Crit save and on the move simultaneously make you more tanky. You increase your survivability. You can proc them very easily. You can hip fire very easily with the MP7 to get downed agent kills, as well as NPC kills. And then strike back, since you're going to be allowing yourself to reach low health in order to take advantage of the refresh talent, you're going to get that 20% rather frequently. And since you already have low cooldowns, any form of cooldown reduction is very, very powerful. If you are not in a squad, then switch out triage for one is none, like I said. But mostly I would recommend this spread of 4 talents. Jumping into the gameplay, I feel obligated to say that this build is probably my favorite build of all time now. It's actually taken the #1 slot away from Deadeye in my book because of the ability to play the way that I want to and the way that I'm kind of used to and have been struggling to play for a while since 1.6 launched. I like to think that I adapt very well, but this build allows me to feel an extremely high degree of comfort while playing. Due to the survivability, due to the fact that I always have my heals off of cooldown, or typically have my heals off of cooldown. I always have something that I can pop in terms of a skill. My damage is high when I proc all my bonuses and snapshot all the different bonuses. The damage is very, very high, and I can also heal my teammates. I actually get a sense of satisfaction when I'm using a DPS build like this, getting kills, to then also fire off a heal that really helps my teammates and isn't useless. It's something that feels really organic to me. It feels very, very comfortable. It's nice. I really like the build. It's a very strong build. And the skill ceiling is quite high. Because you're proccing bonuses at the right times with the refresh mask, etc., the skill ceiling is high. You can survive a lot of different things like Seeker Mines, for instance. If you pop your overheal at the right time, if you know that Seeker Mine is coming, that will allow you to survive almost 100% of potential Seeker Mines. Because you can pop that heal frequently, you can put that barrier up, before the Seeker Mine detonates, and then it won't kill you. And you have time to then pop a medkit as well, and it will save your life a lot of the time. So having that ability to be overhealed for the majority of fights, as well as having that very high healing in the last health segment, is going to be really powerful. Now, as you can see here, there's a couple different clips that I have to demonstrate this. When I'm in the last health segment, like I just was, and popped my heal, I went back to more than full health. He was not prepared to deal with that. Only the best DPS players are going to be able to DPS right through that heal. That's a tremendous heal that a lot of players aren't used to. Another thing is that they're only typically used to skill builds having that high heal. If you are not a skill build, if you're a DPS player and you actually have damage on your MP7 or your MP5 or whatever gun you're choosing to use, and then you also have the ability to full heal yourself like that, that's unexpected. The best things in these types of games is unexpected maneuvers, unexpected mechanics, and all these things working together is very unexpected. I think that this is a tremendously powerful build. Like I said before, the meter is not indicative of how strong it is. You can do plenty of damage, you have really good survivability, and it's something that I definitely believe is one of my all-time favorites now. I'm trying to get better at hip firing. They added auto aim to hip fire. I'm not really sure why, but I'm trying to get better at hip firing with the MP7 because it's actually a really great gun to hip fire with. The burst damage on this gun in particular is phenomenal, though like I said, you can switch it out for any other SMG type or gun archetype if you do want to use it some different way. I don't know, there's not much else to say about it. I actually got higher scores with this build than I'm typically getting in Last Stand. I led my team every time. I didn't struggle to get footage. Sometimes I actually struggle to get footage with builds, whether it because because I'm playing badly, or maybe my team isn't syncing up. We're not synergizing. I don't really know. This build, I did not struggle at all. Every time I log in with this build and play, I feel strong. I feel valuable to the team. I get a lot of kills. I survive a lot of different things. I'm not going back and respawning frequently because I can always just wait a couple seconds, break line of sight, and then pop a full heal and go back to full health or a full overheal. It's really, really fun to use. I can't really, I'm harping on it, but it genuinely is something that allows me to return to a previously really comfortable style of gameplay that hasn't really been active in patch 1.6 right now. I've had to kind of change my playstyle. I've had to play a little bit more conservative, or if not, play a lot more aggressive and actually use my heals and my medkits and stuff as offensive tools. Well, this is a build that turns those back into defensive tools. Typically, I would say in a DPS build now in patch 1.6, I'm using the Tenacious Mask or something like that. I'm using my medkits and my booster shot offensively. I'm proccing them on the front end of fights. But here now, it's a defensive tool. You can proc them multiple times during the duration of a fight. And I would actually advise, like I said previously when talking about the skills, popping your booster shot before you enter the fight to get those bonuses, and then popping it again during the fight as well to get the bonuses yet again and also go back to full health. And the heal rotation is so low that you are able to do that. It's a solid build. It's really fun. And thank you guys for watching. Check out the links below if you want to support the channel, and we do have the upper echelon shirts available right now on screen right now. These are something that we're going to be selling for the next at least week, a little bit more than a week. Then they're going to be, you know, taken off the market for a while. So if you want one, definitely go pick one up. It's what I wore it to PAX. You know, I wore this design to PAX. We have more designs coming, so check these out if you're interested. They are going to be live for a little bit longer. So thank you guys for watching. As always, thank you for hearing me out, and check out the links below if you want to get integrated with upper echelon, and have a nice night.